right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for visiting the Harris County Democratic Party here at the headquarters. We are here to discuss the state of education here in Texas and kind of the poor job that Republican leadership has done. One, by not protecting our children. As you see, we still have not had the state legislature convene for a special session to address guns in school. And then we still are not adequately funded as a state here for per pupil spending, And so we're here to talk about these things, and I'm going to introduce to you Zeph Capo, who's the president of the Texas AFT chapter.
Thank you, Otis. My name is Zeph Capo. I'm proud to be the president of the Texas American Federation of Teachers, and I'm happy to be here with the Harris County Democratic Party, speaking on behalf of educators across the state of Texas. And I want to say, first and foremost, public education really should not be a partisan issue. Public education should focus on all of our children, all of our families. Every child in the state of Texas should have the opportunity to a great public education. Unfortunately, what we've seen in the leadership of the state of Texas, probably sometime since the 90s, is a continual march to the right, a continual march to division between the haves and the have-nots, a continual underfunding of our public schools, a continual lack of prioritization of some of the most basic tenets that we should be providing families, and that's ensuring that their children are safe when they're in schools. We put the rights of individuals who want to carry weapons of war around in public ahead of the safety of our children in public schools. That is unfortunate. It shouldn't be a partisan issue, but it is. And frankly, you need to look no further than the platforms of the Republican and the Democratic Party on public education if you want evidence. Those that are out there that don't feel like we're doing what we need to be doing, those that are out there who are tired of the decisions that have been made by the party in power for the last 30 years, I say look at the platform. Look at what they put in writing. Look at what they said their values are. Are their values closer to you than ours are? Because I know what my values are, and they value every child. They value every family having dignity and respect and the opportunity to be in school. And I'll say, it makes it very difficult sometimes for me to call out people that divide and want to ban our books and treat different families because they're different than yours differently. We've got some work to do in our Democratic Party on that issue as well, too. Make no mistake. But when you put aside the personalities, when you put aside the egos, and you look at the values of where one stands, the values of Texans are the values that support safety, that support proper funding, that support equality, that support inclusion of every family. We've got a lot of work to do here in the state of Texas. We have a lot of work to do to make sure that our teachers want to stay here. We are $7,500 under the average for teacher salary in a state that has the 9th largest economy, not in this country, but in this world. How do you have an economy that large, yet you still are so far behind the rest of the state? And the only answer is the government that's been in power, the government who have made these decisions, have chosen not to prioritize our public schools and the people who take care of our kids. It's time to change that, and I want to say thank you to Democrats who passed that platform. I want to say thank you to Democrats that are out there trying to make sure that our schools are safe and well-funded and that we meet every family, no matter who they are or what their background is, at the door when we open them to public school children across the state of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Sylvia Garcia, Congresswoman in District 29 here in the Houston area, also parts of Pasadena, South Houston, Galena Park, South Houston, and Destino City. It saddens me to say that as we look at the opening of schools all across Texas, that parents are worried for the safety of their children. They're worried about whether or not we've done enough to keep intruders with guns, particularly automatic weapons, out of the schoolhouse. They're worried as to whether or not their kids are going to be safe on the school buses. They're simply worried that whether or not their children will come home. Parents have a right to expect us to keep them safe in their community, safe particularly at their schools, their school activities, their buses, so that when they drop off the child, that they know they're going to be able to pick up that child after school. So it saddens me that many families are living in fear. I was listening to a podcast this morning, as I often do, and I actually heard a mother say that she's preparing. She's bought the school supplies, Mayor, and she's bought a bulletproof backpack. Can you imagine today in 2022 that we even have to talk about a bulletproof backpack? That they're even manufacturing bulletproof backpacks is completely amazing. And where is the problem? The problem is the failure of leadership in Austin and Governor Abbott to pass common sense gun reform. You all remember Santa Fe? It happened a few years back. The governor had a commission, he had listening sessions, and they came up with, I forget how many, 17-point plan. Not one thing in that plan talked about guns. In fact, they totally stayed away from it, and all the proposals about red flag laws and automatic weapons didn't pass through their process. Now comes Uvalde. And what does he say? That looking at guns and gun restrictions is no real solution. Well, I tell you, there's a lot of parents from Uvalde, from Santa Fe, from every school district across our state that beg to differ, because guns in the wrong hands are not good for any neighborhood, and least of all, any school. And what is that doing? It's putting fear in families, and it's putting fear in teachers. I'm told that 70% of today's teachers, 7 out of 10, are thinking about retiring or quitting or finding something else to do. But if you ask our indicted Attorney General, he'll tell you that what we need to do is just give them a gun. Let's give them one more duty to put them more at risk. I say that's all nonsense. We need to make sure that we have a special session, that we deal with changing the age and raising it to 21 before you can buy an automatic weapon, to pass a gun sense red flag law, and pass a gun sense background check law in Texas. I know we can do it. We're a state that's always been the leaders, not the followers. And for those who ask why should we do it, it's real simple. The life of one child is worth more than all the guns in the world. One child's life is worth more than all the guns in the world. We need change. We need change in Austin, and we're going to be about making sure we get that done. Thank you. And I yield to Mayor Turner.
Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia. One of the main reasons why I wanted to be here is that as our kids prepare to go to school, the number one concern of parents is the safety of their kids. And we all understand that, and we get it. And it only makes sense. These kids are precious. They are our children, and they are concerned about their safety. The other thing that I want to be here is that over the last several weeks, there's been a lot of focus about making sure that our school district police are prepared. I know a number of questions have gone to the superintendents. You know, are you ready? Will the districts Are the districts prepared to safeguard their children? And we've had constables step up and sheriff departments, HPD and others to step up to say that they are prepared to do whatever they need to do if there's some shooter that comes on their campus. And they've talked about the equipment that they have, the guns that they have, the weaponry that they had. We just saw HISD, the school board vote to purchase additional weapons for law enforcement that's patrolling their schools. And I understand that, and I get that and appreciate the efforts of law enforcement. But what is very disconcerting for me is that we are all seem like reconcile to the fact that nothing is going to happen from Austin, that everything now is on local school districts and local law enforcement to protect these schools, our children, teachers, faculty, and the best way to do that is for law enforcement to quickly go in and deal with them, let's say a person who comes onto their campus. Let me just say for me, that's on the back end, that's not on the front end. The local law enforcement community, and those of us locally will do what we have to do, but that's the back end. And I hope that the people in our state will not just come to the conclusion that nothing is going to happen in Austin, and so therefore, providing guns to our teachers, providing them with the training and all of this, is this the best we can do? This is not the best we can do. There were 13 mayors from major Texas cities, and I will tell you, Democrat and Republican mayors, 13, that signed a letter, sent it to the governor, lieutenant governor, the speaker, and others, saying the one thing you can do, and we were all in agreement, is raise the age from 18 to 21. You can do that. For the parents in Uvalde, for others, that would be reassuring, because that change was made in the last legislative session to lower it from 21 to 18, and then Uvalde happened. So what the legislature can do, and I'm speaking as the mayor of the city of Houston, was someone who was in the legislature for 27 years, raise the age from 18 to 21, and you can do that now. They certainly should have done it before kids went back to school. Mm-hmm. They could have done it before. A special session. So why are you waiting? Why are you waiting? And that's a question that should be asked. So raise the age from 18 to 21. Red flag laws, you can do that. Reasonable background checks, you can do that. And since the response is, well, these are mental behavioral issues here, then the state of Texas should provide substantial funding for mental behavioral health issues. You can do that now. If that's the reason, if you want to put it on somebody's mental behavioral health status, then why should Texas remain in the bottom 10 in the country when it comes to mental behavioral health funding? You can do that now. And then lastly, education is critical. Pay the teachers what they rightfully deserve. We shouldn't be below the national average. Pay them what they rightfully deserve. Invest in education. We shouldn't be 45th in the country when it comes to education. Come this legislative session in January, the state of Texas will have a fund balance of more than $27 billion. I was in the legislature for 27 years. We never had nearly that much. $27 billion. Put it on the schools, put it on the children, put it on the teachers and the educators. And as the Congresswoman said, when 70% of your teachers are thinking about going someplace else, that speaks volumes. Pay the teachers what they rightfully deserve. They're dealing with COVID. They're dealing with an unsafe environment. and now you want to arm them instead of paying them. It makes absolutely no sense. So as the mayor of the city of Houston, I wanted to be here because you can't have a city going in the right direction if the safety and education of our kids are moving in another direction. So if you really want to protect these kids, instead of lowering the age where an 18-year-old can get an assault weapon, raise it back up and do it now. Now let me yield to the congressman of the 9th Congressional District, Congressman Al Green.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I thank my colleague, Ms. Garcia, as well. She has been a champion on these issues, and I associate myself with her comments. The mayor has been a part of the avant-garde as well. I associate myself with your comments. But to the governor, I say this. In the name of the 19 babies who were murdered, in the name of the 19 babies who were murdered, Governor, call a special session. In the name of the 2 teachers who were murdered, Governor, call a special session. These are special circumstances. That's what a special session is for. In the name of justice for those who have lost their lives, including those at the Walmart store, more than 20 persons in the state of Texas, call a special session, Governor. Governor, your failure to call a special session, and if someone else should die under similar circumstances, that blood will be on your hands, Governor. Enough now. You have the power. We elected you to exert your power, to use your power. We didn't elect you to go along, to get along, to put the next election ahead of the lives of people in this state. You're wrong, Governor. I'm looking in the eye of the camera. I want you to know you're wrong for what you're doing. It's time for you to call a special session. And it's also time to put away this inane, nearly insane idea that teachers ought to be the defenders. You had more than 100, 200, 300 officers out there, had body cameras, had helmets, had protective vests, had long guns. Took them more than an hour to go in. And you expect a teacher with a handgun to do what armed persons with long guns and helmets and body armor didn't do? Teachers should be allowed to teach, Governor. This is what we hire them to do. We don't train them to do what police officers get extended training to do. Not just a few hours or a week or two and give them a handgun. This insanity has got to stop. It has evolved into fatuous folly that is unacceptable. And Governor, the blood is going to be on your hands. You are responsible now because you have the power. And you refuse to use the power to save lives. I've gotten to a point in my life now where it really doesn't matter about the next election. What matters about what's happening right now to these babies and those people in Uvalde. So take me out. If you can't speak truth to power, you ought not have the power to speak truth to power. This is a time for every person to take a stand. I can't stand it myself. I'm sick of it. Pusillanimous behavior of this kind. It's unbelievable. So, Governor, I beseech you, I implore you, call a special session in the name of those babies I ask, in the names of those teachers I ask, in the names of persons that you will never meet and greet, and I didn't either, but they're no longer with us. We ask.
Good afternoon. My name is Aisha Davis, and I proudly serve on the Texas State Board of Education, representing District 13. Before I ran for the State Board, I was a teacher, and I'll always proudly be a teacher. and what's happening to teachers and students is unfathomable. Right now, I serve on the Committee on School Initiatives as a vice chair, and when I first got elected to the board, I was on the Committee for Instruction, where we talk about curriculum. But that's not what I want to talk about today, about how Republicans are trying to tear apart our curriculum and tear apart our history and take away all of those good ideas that students need to know that makes the fabric of America. Today I'm here as students across Texas start school or have already started school to put out a clarion call to our governor and to all of our Republican leaders across the state. I'm here to say you are willfully playing politics with our children, with our teachers. You are depriving Texas children of the resources they need, and you are depriving Texas teachers of the resources they need so they can feed into these millions of growing minds. You are starving our education system, and you're doing this on purpose so that folks you know can make a profit. I was once told a broken system is very profitable. And in this case, our Texas families and our ISDs are the ones who are losing. Governor Abbott's wealthy campaign donors would love for him to continue to push this school choice narrative that would put more money into our religious schools and our private schools. Well, let me tell you something about that. I'm not against religious schools or private schools, but what I am for are well-funded ISDs, teachers who don't have to come out of their own pockets to provide for all the different resources and everything a child needs to be successful, and schools that have lights on, schools that have resources, schools that can provide everything that a child needs to be successful. We have school districts like Devers ISD that's not too far from here that has to move to a 4-day work week. We have more districts who are picking up on that as well because the funding is not available to be able to do what they need to do in 5 days and adequately pay our teachers. Greg Abbott and his Republican buddies call teachers government employees as a way of demeaning them. Well, you know what, Governor Abbott? Myself and the rest of those government employees are actually heroes. Every single day, we give all we can to feed into minds of millions of Texas children in our ISDs. Our teachers work long, hard hours, increasingly dangerous conditions, unsafe, using their own money when they're not even getting paid what they should, just so Texas kids can have a fair chance. So I say we need to pay these leaders what we deserve. I say Greg Abbott needs to listen to actual teachers and not his friends. I say fund our ISDs and fund our teachers like the professionals that they are. Stop putting all these additional mandates on teachers and allow them to do what they need to do. And no, your teachers are not your security guards. They don't need AK-47s in the classrooms. They need funding so they can give equipment to our kids. So Governor Abbott, it's time for you to put aside those CPAC appearances and invest pennies, more than just pennies, into our public schools and our children's futures. Thank you.
So you've seen a consistent theme here from what our Harris County delegation has said to Aisha, who this issue is so important for her that she drove all the way from Dallas to talk about this. Texas schools have long had teacher shortages, but the problem is really dire. Texas teachers are underpaid. Texas teachers are overworked. Texas teachers have subpar benefits. Texas teachers are worried about their health and their safety. Texas teachers feel attacked by geopoliticians and MAGA Republicans. Texas public schools are drastically underfunded. That's not because of the Democratic Party. That's because of Republican leadership who refuses to put our future first. We can't continually talk about the future, and how well equipped we want them to be when literally the future is being taken away. It's time for Governor Abbott to call a special session. Just like Congressman Al Green said, there's a reason why it's called a special session. It's for special circumstances. Time and time again, we have seen the Republican leadership in this state fail us. We went through a once in a 500-year flood, and we refused to use the rainy day fund. 19 kids were gunned down in an elementary school, and countless numbers of teachers. You know what the governor said he did? He called for the House and the Senate to have a special committee to look into the situation. That's what this governor did. But I don't want to keep talking about what Republicans aren't doing. I want to talk about what Democrats are going to do once we elect Beto O'Rourke as governor, we elect Mike Collier as lieutenant governor, and we elect Rochelle Garza as attorney general. We have to address the backsliding play. We've got to adjust for inflation and give teachers what they deserved and what they've earned over these years. We have to increase funding for mental health resources. You know, I find it very funny the governor kept talking about mental health. In April, he took away $211 million away from the very state agency that deals with mental health. We have to take action to lighten the load for workers who have kept our schools running through the pandemic. Do you all know that there's going to be classrooms this fall with no teachers in it? How are kids supposed to learn? There won't be any educators. You take away their books, you take away their resources. Teachers have to fund their own materials in their classrooms. That's not a state that I want to live in, and that's not the future of Texas. We have to allow teachers to teach the truth. You cannot be afraid to look side by side and say, this person looks different than me, so let's not teach about their history. We can't continue to distract teachers and equip them with lies when we know that this is not going to help the future of Texas. We have to ensure teachers receive their pensions and Social Securities they need to survive and thrive during retirement. There's going to be a $27 billion surplus in next year's legislative session. Retired Texas teachers hope to secure the first increase in their monthly pension checks in a decade. In a decade. Gas was at $5 a gallon. Supplies are the cost of supplies are rising every day. And we still haven't increased the pensions of retired teachers in a decade. When the Texas legislature reconvenes, though it remains unclear, they're not going to secure the necessary support for our retired teachers. Teachers deserve safe working conditions, fair pay, reasonable workloads, a secure retirement, but most of all, our educators and our students deserve respect. That's the least we can do with the Republican leadership in power. You guys got any questions? For anybody up here, by the way.